So, hey, how you doing? So you're thinking of maybe modifying your bicycle to ride on the railroad tracks? Well, me too. Tell you what, I'm gonna take you along on my build. We'll go out and we'll test it and we'll see if it works. Come on, let's go.
So the first thing we needed to do is to get some wheels. A quick trip down to the local thrift store to pick up a pair of roller blades and a pair of roller skates. We can use the roller blade wheels to center the front carriage, and we can use the roller skate wheels to ride on. So I found what's basically a brand new pair of roller skates. We're going to take the trucks off and the base plate off, and we're going to use these to mount our roller skates. Now the trucks were very convenient because I could take one wheel off of a truck and I could use that side of the truck to mount the wheel so we could get it to line up alongside of the railroad track to keep these wheels from sliding off the side of the track. All we have to do is grab our bar. We'll just drill a hole through the bar, and that way we can mount this truck on the bar. We'll get it lined up, and that will keep the bike from tipping over one side or the other. Have this other bar just had a hole in it. Just a quick look, you can see that it lines up perfectly. So after looking at it, we can actually use the entire base plate and as a connection means. We'll just drill a hole through the bar and the plate. That will allow us to connect the bar. You'll also see that the side wheel, to keep it straight, keeps it aligned on top of the railroad track. Hopefully this will keep the bike from shimming to one side or the other. So this is our first attempt at our makeshift outrigger to try to keep the bike from sliding off of the rail. So now we're needing some way to connect all of this to the bicycle and connect everything together. Quick little trip down to the hardware store. There are a lot of different pieces of EMT conduit connector to choose from. This is the basic configuration of the second attempt of the outrigger, the front carriage for the front wheel, and the connection means onto the bicycle. We found this nice section of railroad to do our testing on. It's nice, it's straight, it's not really long. The great thing about traveling on railroad tracks is typically they will follow a river. They'll have some nice scenic routes that you can take, so that's why we chose this particular abandoned railroad track. So we're going to go ahead and unload. First thing we got to do is we got to get it all set up. Quite convenient to find this crossing, this railroad crossing. It's really nice to have this flat area. On the other side right here, used to go to a campground, which is now abandoned. It's locked off, so this is actually just a dead-end section, but it's very convenient to be able to load and put everything on the railroad tracks right here. Now once we bring all the pieces over to the crossing, we'll go ahead and put this together, show you how everything goes together, and then we'll test it out. The first thing we'll have to do is we'll have to attach the rollerblade wheels, the guide wheels, to the skate. They're very simple, very easy, a single bolt, tighten it down, and then we'll adjust them so that the front carriage will stay on the track. They're very quick and easy to assemble. Just slide them through the bolt hole, tighten down the nut, and then once we get them adjusted to the right location, we'll be able to clamp this down completely. Now, not all railroad tracks are created equal, meaning that all the tracks are not always the same width. There is some variance, so that's where the adjustability comes into play, because one track may be wider or narrow than the other, so we have to be able to adjust those. So that's why I built this mechanism to adjust them, because we want to make sure that the roller skate wheel is centered in the center of the rail. You'll notice that they are out a little bit too far, so right now it's a little bit tight. So we've got a couple set screws. We loosen those up, we loosen the nut on the top, and then we can bend these wheels in and out, and that allows us to adjust that to the exact width of the particular rail that we're riding on during the day. So as you can see, that this rides just a little bit above the tracks. So we're going to bend these out. We'll do this on all four of them all the way around. Then we can recenter the skate on the tracks, and then it's not as hard to just bend these in, and once we've got them to the correct location, or they're lined up both sides so that they're holding the skate square, we can then tighten down all of the set screws and the bolts, and that will hold it steady, and it will always be at the correct width for whatever rail that we're riding on. So we're going to want to go back around and make sure that all of the nuts and our set screws are tight. After we're good, we'll give it a little test roll. Looks pretty good right now. We'll bring it back. We'll make any other additional adjustments to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly. The roller skate wheels in the center of the track and the guides snugged up against the edge of the tracks. And then we'll just give it one more little test shove. Everything looks good. Hole through a little bolt right here. This is actually the fork off of a handlebars, but I had one laying around, so what the heck, thought I'd use it. I had to put a spacer in here to tighten it down. Now it's very simple that my conduit from my outrigger slides right into this little pipe that I've got, and then I have a pin that I drop in it, and that holds the back of it, and it allows the bike to be upright so I can connect the rest of the outrigger without any problem. Now the stabilizer bar just hooks to this U-clamp that I have on the front yoke of the bicycle. This stabilizes it, and it also keeps the wheel of the outrigger from sliding forward or backward, which keeps it parallel to the rear wheel, keeps the bike from tipping over. So once we have that connected, I have one last bar to connect, and this bar is designed to reduce the torque from when you get on and off the bicycle by standing on the pedal. It transfers this torque from up the bike down to about middle of this cross member, and it's just connected with a simple little clamp. Now what I found after I did this is that clamp it's not the greatest. It moves a little bit, and when it does, it shifts the bicycle's position. It does help with the torque, but it's not the best of all possible solutions. And then this runs up against this locking collar, so it can't slide any further down this pipe. And then I'll go ahead and just tighten these guys up. Now the last thing that we have to do is we'll just hook that to the front carriage, the front guide. So we'll just drop this in here. Very simple connection means I have a couple clamps on the side of the fork. We're going to connect to those. Bolt the guide down. So I have a clamp with a bolt sticking out. Both of these sides are drilled. You slide those on there with a nut on both sides, and it lines it up perfectly. The height is all adjusted before I come out to the track to make sure that these are in the correct location, the correct height, so that the wheel itself, the front wheel of the bicycle, rides on the track. At the same time, there is pressure on both of the roller skate wheels at the back and the front of the carriage to stabilize the front skate. Now on these, I opt for a little bit more power to put those nuts and bolts on and off a lot quicker, since it is a fairly long bolt. So instead of spinning them on and off, a little bit of power never hurts to have a little extra power. Okay, so now comes the moment of truth. The time when we actually see if all of this works. We're going to ride the bike down the track. Now while I'm on this cement platform at this crossing, it's pretty easy to get on and off the bike. When you're further down the railroad tracks, a little bit high, it's a little bit tougher. All right, here we go. Let's see how it works. So far, so good. So that wasn't too bad. Let's check and see if we can just pick it up, turn it around, and see how it works. I did notice that there was an awful lot of torque put on the bicycle, and it looks like the clamps might have shifted just a little bit. I'll check it out here. Yeah, I'm leaning just a little too much to the side, and it's not staying on the track like it should. So we'll just have to do a readjustment on those clamps and then try it again. All right, so I'm gonna call this take 2. I readjusted everything, tightened down the clamps again. It did slide a little bit, moved a little bit, so it messed up the original alignment. But after reworking it, let's try it again. We'll try to head a little bit further down the track, and hopefully when I get off it and try to turn it around, it won't shift those clamps again so that I can ride back. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna have to be walking back. I was on a roll. I thought, well, maybe I might as well just keep going. But after down around the corner, I decided, well, I better turn around and come back before I get too far away if something happens. And sure enough, well, you can't see it, but yeah, torque again, twisted over, messed up the alignment on the front skate because my clamps shifted. My clamping situation right now, well, it's not the best. It's just not working. So, yeah. I had to wheel the bike back. So at this point, it's back to the drawing board. I'm going to look up a little bit better way to maybe work on these clamps, tighten them down on the front end so I don't get that little bit of shift. And maybe I'll see if I can't figure out some way to get rid of the torque when I get off the pedals. Maybe I'll throw a step or something in here. Just figure out something to try to remove that torque when I get off the bicycle. All right, so I'm going to show you the old way that I had this on here. I had the bike here. On this mount, I had this bar that I built. And we just kind of bent it around right there. This clamp went over the top and would clamp it, and then this kept it from sliding. And then on the upper end up here, this was on a clamp.
And this upper end up here, this was on a clamp right here that clamped it, but this would rotate a little bit and it had a little bit of movement. I couldn't get that clamp tight enough. So what I did is I changed to this setup right here. This is actually bolted right to the bicycle, so there's no movement in that at all. And from down here, I moved the connection point from here all the way out to here, because what was happening is when that was right here, it would put pressure and it was bending this just a little bit with the downward pressure on it. So it allowed that clamp to move a little bit. Now, as far as the problem of putting the torque by getting in and off of it on the pedal, I made this. Now, this is just the arm off an old office chair. You can see it's still got the padding on the top of it right there. I got a new office chair. I threw this one out, but I've got this set up that these little clamps slide right on. It's tough to do with one hand. Get on there, clamp. So these clamps just slide right on here. And that holds that end, and this end up here is held right there. Now, I have this step that I can step on. So all I have to do is I just put my foot on this step right here. It moves the torque halfway out down the rail on these two arms, and I no longer am getting that torque, even though I did fix the clamps moving. Now on the front end, I changed these clamps a little. You'll notice on this bolt inside here, I put a bolt so it's tight against this arm. So when I tighten it down, it actually tightens it. Before, I couldn't get it completely tight. And as a safety measure, I just put a couple of these clamps on here on both sides. So I've got it bolted down. So it's a lot sturdier. I did think about just drilling a teeny little pinhole right through here all the way through and putting a pin on there so it wouldn't slide, but just this teeny little bit of movement in those clamps, a 1/16 inch off here, moves the front tire an inch from side to side, which moves the back tire over enough that it does have the possibility to slide off the track. Take it out, we'll try it, and we'll see how it works. So this is what the finished model looks like before our next test. So we're going to take this out, we'll test it out, and we'll see if we have to do some more modifications. Appreciate you watching. You guys have a great week.